historical district saw a variety of military buildings and related sites dating back to the 1850s through post-World War II years. Now, Jefferson Barracks is named in honor of President Thomas Jefferson. It was established in 1826 and deactivated in 1946. And in a few short years, it became the largest military post in the United States. Since relocated, it became the outfitting and training center for military effort of the entire western half of the United States. Its vital role in the development of the West made it a significant factor to the economic, political, and diplomatic success of the government. It started out as a base camp for troops fighting in the Indian Wars and served as an ordnance depot, engineer base, cavalry post, general hospital, introduction and separation center, and a basic training center. Jefferson Barracks over the years hosted a constant procession of men who played important roles in American history. Stephen W. Kearny, Zachary Taylor, Jefferson Davis, Robert E. Lee, U.S. Grant, William T. Sherman, and Philip Sheridan were a few of the famous Americans to serve at Jefferson Barracks.
These Missouri military heroes represent those who proudly served and returned from the Desert Shield, Desert Storm Operation, Enduring Freedom of Operation, Iraqi Freedom, and subsequently lost their lives while still in service. Thank you for your service, Corporal or Captain Aaron J. Alderman, FFC F. Nicholas Moses, SSG Robert C. Hobbs, Sergeant Eric W. Summers, Staff Sergeant Joshua M. Scheinhoff, Sergeant Alex M. Bothamer, Sergeant Charles J. Forrest Jr., Private Ryan C. Simmons, Sergeant Stephen R. Trumley, United States Army, St. Louis, Missouri, operating Enduring Freedom. Operation Iraq Freedom. Missouri Military Memorial in honor of Missouri military men and women who made the ultimate sacrifice during Operation Iraqi Freedom and Operations Enduring Freedom. These represent the heroes who served and returned from Desert Shield, Desert Storm, Operation Enduring Freedom, and Operation Iraqi Freedom, and subsequently lost their lives still in service. Sergeant Logan A. Hedinger, Lieutenant Kent M. Kife, Sergeant Corona A. Womack, SPC Randy R. Heckcock, Lieutenant Corporal Jack T. Kenner, SPC Mark D. Blakely Jr., Lieutenant Corporal Christopher M. Bess, Master Sergeant Mark R. Turner, SSG Robert J. Taxwell. Thank you for your service.
Now, Jefferson Barracks was created in 1821, and it's the oldest operational. It was the oldest operational military installation in the region and was named after President Thomas Jefferson, who had died earlier that year. The historic site is in South St. Louis County, Lee, Missouri, and it was strategically placed on a plateau that overlooks the Mississippi River.
Mississippi River Greenway, Jefferson Barracks Historical Site.
Now, Jefferson Barracks was built during the American Civil War, 1861 to 1865. It was served as a military hospital for both sides and a recruitment depot for the North. In 1862,
Mississippi River Greenway, dedicated to the people of St. Louis County, September 8th, 2012.
Construction of the Western Sanctuary Commission's hospitals facilities began at Jefferson Barracks. There are approximately 1,140 Confederate soldiers buried in sections 19, 20, 21, 22, 13 Confederate unknowns buried in cemetery.
Attention, permittable interlocking concrete pavement, power washing, resurfacing, and the use of sandballs for winter tire tracking are prohibited. Care should be taken during snow plowing.
The site is 331 acres. Number of graves were 237,000, and it's in at the Jefferson Barracks National Cemetery, which is located in Jefferson. It is the largest burial site of the Civil War soldiers in Missouri, with over 16,000 Federal and Confederate soldiers.
Jefferson Barracks Historical Site Old Ordnance Room. The Old Ordnance Room was the first of limestone The Old Ordnance Room was the first limestone built in Jefferson Barracks for the purpose of storing gunpowder. It was constructed in 1851 by master builder Francis Quintet of St. Louis. The cast iron, or just over $18,000, included the stone wall and around the buildings. The sum of the Quintet could not erect a quality building for the amount, but the amount remains in use. To the south of the museum, the building, but inside the compound is a marker disguising the area as the Blue Star Memorial by way. The marker was presented in St. Louis County Parks by the Melville Garden Club on September 12, 2004. The Blue Star symbol is taken from the World War II service flags. Of thousands of homes during the war. The destination of Blue Star Memorial, by the way, it intended marks and historical grounds and to commemorate soldiers who served overseas. Now the limestone quarry, Most of the buildings in today's historic section of Jefferson Barracks are constructed of limestone taken in the quarry east of the old ordnance room. Limestone unique physical and chemical properties allow to make uses. Hundreds of beautiful historic structures in Missouri were built with it, including Daniel Boone's home, the old St. Louis Cathedral near the Arch, and even the state capitol building today it has extensive use as one of the raw materials of the Portland cement. Now, Reception Center number 1772 during World War II. This area was part of the Reception Center number 1772 from March 1941 until July 1943. More than 135,000 troops were processed through the Reception Center in 1772. The center operated 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. 40 officers and 311 enlisted personnel were assigned to staff the area. Their basic mission was to receive men from recreational selective service centers, process them, and equip them with a transfer to the training center or unit of field forces for basic training. Now, some of the buildings in this area were Series 763 men temporary barracks that were 29 feet by 6 inches wide, 80 feet long, and 2 stories tall. More than 80 men can be housed in each building using bunks. During the early 1940s, approximately 275 frame buildings were constructed in Jefferson Barracks. More than 150 of them were 63 men of temporary barracks. Now, the framing was wood platform construction based on 3-foot centers, wood joists, and girders braced the floors. Windows were wood sash, continuous eaves called aquatic medias, or covered all windows on both the first and the second floors. Now, these eaves allow for the better ventilation during rain without cots wet. Now, when the windows were open, they also kept the sides of the building windows from excessive weathering and rotting. Now, this right here is the old ordnance room. Oh, shit. It's open. This is the Bluestone Memorial by War, a tribute to the Armed Forces of American Soldiers, Melville Green Club, September 12, 2004. Member from located just a few miles south of the city of St. Louis, Missouri. The Jefferson Barracks military post is the oldest operational installation west of the Mississippi. It was originally established in 1826 as the country's first infantry school of practice. Jefferson Barracks received its name in honor of President Thomas Jefferson, who died earlier the same year. Jefferson Barracks was established on the land that Thomas Jefferson had actually obtained as part of the Louisiana Purchase, which
added to the agreement that the first major military installation should bear his name. Now, Jefferson Barracks was primarily a supportive military installation overseeing the westward expansion of the new Western Territory and assisting in protecting the early white settlers. Its early years of activity, troops from Jefferson Barracks were regularly called upon to keep hostile Indian groups at bay and to keep the peace between settlers from the Indians, but they also had to protect the Indians from the settlers who were at times fighting with the nearby tribes and the land hunting rights. Now, the troops from Jefferson Barracks also took back in the Black Hawk War in 1831 to 1832, which led to the realization that the western frontier was an enormous territory and that the army at the time was unsuited.
From History to the Mexican War by General Carmen Wogan. First President of Missouri Mounted Volunteers, 1846 to 1847. Three republics briefly. American involvement of Mexico's War of Independence. Two republics. He wore a yellow hat cord. General Francisco Paul. Bell-bottom trousers and a coat of navy blue. Sails of the unit. Back to Veracruz. The Blue Jackets, who were part of the landing party, the May 2nd, from the left to the chief petty officer, Mexicans defending the city. There's a Navy landing party, Barracks. Battle of San Pascal, California. A soldier's burden. It's a soldier's knapsack. Right here. 1839 wheel hats. 1839 waist belt. The regulation haversack. And these are all reproduction.
Patrolling it. This action is directly responsible for the information of the United States Regiment of Dragoons at the Jefferson Barracks in 1833. The Dragoons were an armed regiment of mounted cavalry troops who were highly mobile and could travel far distances in a short period of time. This mounted cavalry unit actually became the very first permanent cavalry unit in the United States Army Jefferson Barracks, 1st Dragoons, which were eventually redesignated as a...
Now this over here is the visitor center. This is
Now the barn, now the visitor center, laborer's house, and ordnance stable, i.e. IP. Now it was originally built as a barn in 1878 by the Ordnance Department to hold 7 animals and 4 wagons. Now, after World War I, it was a tank repair facility with a ramp added to access the second floor. During World War II, it was converted to a reception facility so families could visit their soldiers.
This is 350, the stable where they kept 4 horses and 2 wagons were kept in the stables. Over here is the laborer's house. More of the stables. That's the old ordnance room. This was erected 1851. Wedding garden, this area is exclusive reserved for today's ceremony, for this.
Cavalry in 1861 participated in virtually every conflict in America, such as the Seminole War, Mexican War, Civil War, Spanish-American War, and much of the Indian expeditions, including the Cherokee, Iowa, Kansas, Majas, Pawnee, Potawatomi, Osage, Otay, Sauk, and Sioux Indians. By the time the American Civil War erupted in 1861, many of the most well-known and prominent leaders of the war had been assigned to Jefferson Barracks from the Federal Army. In fact, one time or another, approximately 220 Civil War generals served during duty at Jefferson Barracks.
Oh, hold on. Center your pollination pantry habitat garden.
Such as Union Generals Ulysses Grant, William T. Sherman, Philip Sheridan, Winfield Scott Hancock, and Montgomery Meigs. Confederate Generals Robert E. Lee, James Longstreet, Albert Sidney Johnston, Joseph E. Johnson, and Braxton Bragg also served here and did American president.
It's the laborer's house. It's where they ate. The old pump right over here. Fireplace where they cooked at. The little seating area. This is the sleeping quarters up here. It's one of the bedrooms.
Zachary Taylor and Confederate President Jefferson Davis. Now, U.S. troops from Jefferson Barracks has played leading roles in the first action of the Civil War in Missouri, and this capture of the Missouri State Volunteer Militia at Camp Jackson on May 10, 1861 was operational, led by Captain
Architectural work. During the summers of 1958-1959, Washington University Department of Architecture undertook the archaeological exploration of the yard behind the laborer's house. The purpose of this was to determine its original appearance in 1850s. Privy foundation stone wall was damaged when later water pipes were laid. Stone gutters, number 41, the process of excavation. Note that the sail washing has passed the grade level of period 116 years. St. Louis Police Department Historical Site Good Condition, October 6, 2021. The laborer's house. The War Department established Jefferson Barracks as an infantry school of practice in 1826. Also in 1826, the difficulties of supplying ordnance to the West prompted Congress to authorize the purchase of land for erection of the St. Louis Arsenal. Safekeeping of arms and munitions in the United States on the frontier, increased requirements, fire explosions, and ammunition storage, prompted the War Department to allocate 110 acres of northern section of Jefferson Barracks Reservation for the use of the St. Louis Arsenal, a laborer's house, a powder magazine, and a keeper's house. A contract was signed on May 30th, 1851 with the master builder. Okay, in the report of the War Department dated November 2nd, 1852, Captain Robert H.K. White. Now this letter is dated, the letter right here is dated 1869 from Lieutenant Colonel F.D. Callender wrote in the Brevet Major General to A.B. Dwyer, the Chief of the Ordnance. The Callender reported that a family living with a cottage laborer's house and that Mr. Peck, a naval officer, had room. Callender wanted the house retained for the exclusive use of the Ordnance Department. This exclusive was granted. Civilian laborers employed by the First Army required a laborer's house in 1851. Okay. Now we're going over to where the prison once stood.
Nathaniel Leon, who served later to ride in the immortality of the Battle of Wilson Creek and began the first general to die in the Civil War. The Lion unit at Camp Jackson's affair included 2 companies of the 2nd U.S. Infantry under the command of Captain Thomas Sweeney and the regiment of the 1st U.S. Volunteers command by Francis Blair, both of whom would serve with distinguished honors in the Union Army in the Civil War.
Native Missouri landscape for the benefit of wildlife and people, the wild ones.
Now the following thing that we are about to see, growing up, we were always told that this was a prison where they held some war prisoners and things. But in doing the research, as you should always do, you find out that it was actually a root cellar for the laborer's house that we had just showed you.
This is building number 245.
Now, this building is a post-electric supply. In 1909, this building began supplying electricity to the post. The U.S. 2nd Ranger Infantry Battalion of St. Louis Incorporated reenacted has restored the exterior of the building. The 2nd Rangers produced the biggest World War II reenactment in St. Louis area each April. Also nearby is a scenic overlook, arsenal gates, and rifle barrel fence. Civil War cannon and musket barrels make up the entrance in the scenic overlook. Originally, they provided the entrance to the Grand House, the house of the Ordnance Depot commander. The arsenal gates at the lookout were moved from the St. Louis Arsenal at 2nd and Arsenal Streets in St. Louis City. Now, also nearby is the 1857 Powder Magazine Museum River and Archview. Built in 1857, the structure was used to store all types of ordnance during the 19th century. Today, it tells the history and exhibits of the patio, provides visitors with a scenic view of the Mississippi River and the Jefferson National Westward Expansion Memorial, known as the St. Louis Gatewood Arch. And it's also where numerous weddings and graduations are held. Now, through 1861, troops from Jefferson Barracks continued to support the Union War and effort in the Western Department. By 1862, due to the increase in illnesses and casualties, the military aspect of Jefferson Barracks took on a secondary part in order to provide additional hospital space at the Army Medical Department and Western Sanctuary Commission. Although a post hospital had previously existed, the General Hospital opened in April 1862. Now, the summer of 1862, it was enlarged to accommodate 2,500 patients. Steamboats outfitted exploding hospitals, supplemented bed space, as well as providing transportation to and from the battlefields. There were times during the Civil War that Jefferson Barracks was treating more sick and wounded soldiers than any other hospital in the nation, and many of these soldiers never left Jefferson Barracks and were ultimately buried there. Following the Civil War, the military rapidly demobilized Lake Jefferson Barracks, nearly abandoned with the exception of small infantry units garrisons. By 1871, the St. Louis Arsenal was transferred to Jefferson Barracks and renamed the St. Louis Depot. Just 7 years later, the Army's cavalry commanded nearly all Jefferson Barracks except for the Ordnance Room. Starting in 1891, the military post was renovated and new facilities constructed. This was part of a larger movement in the United States military to transform itself.
Now we're going to the National Cemetery.
And a more rigid, pristine, sharp, and disciplined fighting force with the reconstruction of the post. The Army stationed at 38th and 49th Infantry Regiments. There, additionally, Jefferson Barracks was transformed to the Department of Missouri and designated a primary post of the infantry. Now, when the United States declared war on Spain in 1898, Jefferson Barracks was one of the largest recruitment and outfit depots in the country. By 1912, Jefferson Barracks made the headlines when Albert Berry made the first parachute jump in world history. When the Great Depression hit and President Franklin D. Roosevelt launched his New Deal, the Civilian Conservation Corps and Work Progress Administration worked significant on Jefferson Barracks. Now, the military prestige and honor continued through the World Wars, as well as during World War II. Jefferson Barracks and the first one and the largest Army Air Corps training centers to the United States, in addition to being one of the country's greatest recruitment depots. In addition, the German Wehrmacht and the Royal Italian Army detention camp was established, holding hundreds of prisoners. Now, after World War II, Jefferson Barracks was decommissioned due to the demobilization on the Cold War. After a decade of neglect in 1960, the St. Louis County took over and created Jefferson Barracks County Park. In 1998, Jefferson Barracks was named the National Register of Historical Places. By 2002, it marked the year of Missouri Civil War Museum was founded, which would ultimately spark a renovation movement of Jefferson Barracks. Today, the 1905 and 1918 postal exchange buildings have been acquired by the museum, and under extensive renovation, several other buildings across Jefferson Barracks are being renovated and turned into museums related to topics about the post. Missouri Air National Guard and Army National Guards are currently stationed at Jefferson Barracks and currently occupy the majority of the old barracks. Visiting Jefferson Barracks today is a county park historic site, museum district, active military installation, national cemetery, and a Department of Veteran Affairs hospital complex. In addition to the Missouri Civil War Museum, there are other places throughout the historic site. Jefferson Barracks National Cemetery was established.
It says a site of World War II beverage garden and picnic area built by 6th or 8th Infantry in 1930 something for use by all troops stationed at Jefferson Barracks. Covering an acre, it was built of rock with a stream running through it. It had a small dance floor, tables, chairs, and barbecue pits. Because they got married. Because Heather came down, walking down from here, and they got married right over there by the little table thingy, if it's still there. Well, I don't even know if it's still there. Oh, shit. They walked over the bridge. I'm trying to see myself. Oh yeah, it's still there. Yep. Okay.
Now, Jefferson Barracks National Cemetery was established in 1827. Jefferson Barracks National Cemetery, the final resting place for over 200,000 veterans and their loved ones. Veterans are buried here from every American war, including the American Revolutionary War, which is back toward the river of veterans. It was also the largest burial site of the Civil War soldiers in Missouri, with over 16,000 Federal and Confederate soldiers on average. There are 28 burials there each day. Now, 8 Medal of Honor recipients choose from the Civil War, numerous war memorials, World War II and World War I monuments, 2 Continental Army veterans, and several mass graves.
Sometimes he does.
Now today, Jefferson Barracks is a unique destination offering a mix of history, recreational facilities, and natural features. Historic significant stone buildings from the post now serve as museums for permanent displays, special exhibits, as well as tours, classes, and seminars. Admissions and tours of Jefferson Barracks is open from 7 a.m. to a half an hour past sunset. Now the Park Museum are open from noon to 4 p.m. Wednesday through Sunday and are closed Mondays and Tuesdays, Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's Day. Admission is free, but a donation is suggested. All donations go to the Friends of Jefferson Barracks and are used to help preserve the historic site and its buildings. Visitors center various trails for hiking, Now, the county parks visitors have various trails for hiking, walking, and running, disc golf course, archery, rangers, laborers' house and stable, ordnance room, powder magazine museum, the Veterans Amphitheater, Jefferson Barracks Telephone Museum, and there's currently other museums and projects under development. There's a Jefferson Barracks POW-MIA Museum and Jefferson Barracks Ordnance Museum.
Thank you for your service. There we go. It's a veteran.
You want me to park in here?
Yeah. Right there, handicap.
Well, where's your mom and dad at?
Over that way by that tree.
Okay, well, I don't know.
Yeah, I know.
They're by this tree.
Yeah.
This one?
I just have to walk it. But you want me to go find it first? And then you can go. That way you look for a place.
No, I can see you.
Okay. This tree is dedicated to the Veterans Administration in 1976 to the American Medal of Honor recipients who helped make the bicentennial observance possible by gallantry above and beyond the call of duty. It's really close to the tree. Albert Taylor Pinkston, POC, United States Army Air Corps Force, World War II, February 12, 1920, February 23rd, 2000, loving father. And his wife, gotta say Pinkston, April 6, 1923, September 28, 1990. These are the guard sheds.
Remember that used to be a waterfall?
Uh-huh. There's a cannon I wanted.
Actually, a car has to be behind me.
Of course.
John Jordan used to live down the street.
Now, this is the main entrance to North Gate. 1940s postcard shows the North Gate and Jefferson Barracks, a guardhouse in the center with the 6th Infantry above the north door, served as temporary quarters for military police who man the sentry gates located in Grant and Gregg Roads. Now, also in 1851, the Powder Magazine Museum just through the North Gates, a little ways down toward the left, along with a laborer's house, ordnance stables, and building as the oldest extant structure in Jefferson Barracks. This Powder Magazine was constructed in 1851 by St. Louis builder Francis Quillette for a low bid of around $18,500. The building is 120 by 40 with a 4-inch thick walls of limestone coral on site. Now, also the reception center at number 1772 and induction station opened in 1941. Could process 1,000 men a day. Some foundations for the 63-man temporary barracks are still visible, following the footsteps of over 125,000 troops that went in to this very area. Now, Tent City was more than 175 tents were marshaled to hold the numerous recruits passing through the reception center during World War II. Hundreds more filled the area between Grant and Gregg Roads to house the recruits conducting their basic training for the Army Air Corps. Now you had the Post Gymnasium building that served to the Post Gymnasium from 1906 through World War II. The Missouri Civil War Museum features exhibits and research information on the history of the conflict in Missouri. Now you have the Red Cross building, which was built in 1942 to serve Surgeons stationed at JB, home of Jefferson Barracks Heritage Foundation. The walls recognizes the service of many veterans. You have the Post Hospital. This building replaced an old Civil War Air Hospital in 1906-1908. Eventually, it evolved into the entire hospital complex. Today, it is used as Melville High School District. Now, Sylvan Springs is a site troops first camped in July of 1826 when Jefferson Barracks was founded. Now, Jefferson Barracks was founded. The 6th Infantry built in the Sylvan Springs Beverage Garden in 1939. During the World War II, concerts, boxing matches, and other entertainment was held in this area of the military undisturbed as a recreational park servicemen. Now, also Jefferson Barracks National Cemetery, the Department of Veterans Affairs. Jefferson Barracks is south of Sheridan and Sylvan Springs Road. Now, the Post movie theaters, looking through south of Sherman Drive, you'll see the Post movie theaters where Jefferson Barracks closed as a federal facility. St. Bernadette Catholic School acquired the building to the north, and across the street, Red Block Building was the Post Bank, constructed in 1943. Now the JB, that last constructed by the Army's Quartermaster Corps in 1938 at Jefferson Barracks. The building is currently under the County Park Historical Observation. Officers Road, 2 new museums, including the JP Telephone Museum and the POWMIA Museum, who occupy space in the last remaining buildings that once were part of Officers Road, begun around 1912. These were the homes that married officers and their families. A bachelor's quarter, now gone, was located in the center of the row of Hancock Road. Turning the panel along the U.S. Grant Trail, driving towards this panel describes the Jefferson Barracks Parade Ground and National Guard Reservation. Jefferson Barracks on southern edge of the parade grounds, you'll see the large red brick barracks building, which was replaced with the original stone barracks in the 1890s. These structures are now occupied by the Missouri National Guard. And I was also stationed there for my reserve duty, and then my dad exited out of there with World War II. The parade grounds review and retreat formation came together at the parade ground for most of the 120-year history. Now the parade grounds in the epic center of Jefferson Barracks is the focus of activity. Albert Berry made the first successful parachute jump from the airplane here in 1912. President Franklin D. Roosevelt reviewed the troops in April 1940. 3 troops drilled and marched on, held polo games on these grounds. Now, including monuments of veterans of the Battle of the Bulge, Wagner Electric employees of World War II, the Amphitheater Memorial Walk serves as a reminder of the sacrifices of veterans who protect the freedoms that we enjoy today, which are currently being taken away. Lewis and Clark Overlook before Jefferson Barracks assisted the military expedition known as the Court of Discovery, with William Clark in charge of his way to meet Meriwether Lewis in Cahokia. Passed this way in December 7, 1803. Clark's son, Meriwether Lewis Clark Sr., would later serve at J.B. The quarry below the interpretive panel is the location from which the buildings in the ordnance section. Now here you will find my dad burial. My mom's on the back. That's the way they do the veterans and their spouses. My dad served in the World War II, the conflict battle against, which started with Germany conflict, and he actually exited out. He got his exit papers from Jefferson Barracks, which was decommissioned in 1946, and he exited out in 1945. Hollywood says, don't forget to subscribe, hit that notification bell. Hollywood says, don't forget to subscribe, leave a comment, hit the bell, and subscribe, Hollywood says.